We are live.
We are live. Welcome to the film review game preview edition of Seattle Overload. We have Griffin, we have Ty, we have myself, Matty, and we're going to be looking at the Geno goodness, the defense stopping Russell Wilson. And I've just had a coffee. We've also got this lovely little, perspective going on, whiteboard where I will try and draw up some of the concepts we talk about as mainly Griffin's talking about it, because I know a lot of you have requested that. I know sometimes we get a bit lost in the weeds, and for some people, whatever your experience of football and how much of a degenerate you are, like you might pick something up on the way, but we don't want to be like explaining the same concept for half an hour for everyone. But if we draw it up, then it should cover all the boxes. Hopefully, you'll also have to bear with me because first time doing this, we'll see it. What's up, Camden? What's up, Waterbro Joe 12? We see you in the comments. Please do like the video, subscribe to the YouTube, and retweet it if you're on Twitter. We need that love because it helps us grow. So, first up, offense. Griffin, how good was Geno based off the tape?
Hold up. For the audience, if you're a visual participant, whether live or recorded, you'll enjoy watching Matty awkwardly try to not get his pants in the frame.
Ooh, my sexy pants.
So you can awkwardly try to keep his upper half only in on screen. Anyway, so yeah,
you also have to bear with me messing with the graphics on here because that is going to be an adventure. So we'll try to get Matty blown up on the screen, but it might take a quick second. We're very much professional podcasters,
and you'll have to bear with me watching Thursday Night Football Prime Vision with Next Gen Stats broadcast. Okay, so you asked me a question
powered by AWS.
Yeah.
I asked you a question and it was your time to shine, and instead you ad-libbed about other things. Geno, your guy.
Geno Smith is like, what is he, 4th in EPA per play after week 1? He was really good. And I actually thought, he was as good in the second half for the most part. Like some of his best plays came in the second half. I think the second half issues was just more like Pete Carroll just called it stuff, and I was like, oh, that's perfect, because that was just random crap. I didn't like some of the play calls, honestly. I thought Waldron ran a little cold there.
Got a little scared.
And then like the sacks came, and we've talked about it. The first sack, Pete said I think Pete was just trying to keep it even with everything, not to be too high on everybody. I think the play action sack, that was just completely uncrossed. I don't think there's any way for Geno. I mean, if he steps up, what does he step up into? The play's dead if he steps up. On the other one, nothing was open really, but he still could have stepped up because that's what good pocket work would have allowed for. It was a gun 5 drop. So yeah, it's going to take you to 10 yards, but at the bottom of your drop, nothing's there, hitch up, whatever. Put that one on Geno. I thought he was really good. His average depth of target was real low, like bottom 5, like 5 yards. But if you isolate into pure drop back situations, so no play action and gun only, not pistol, because that was, and we'll talk about that. That was a lot of play action as well. But in actual pure drop back situations, he was middle of the pack, like 8.6 yards per target, depth of target of air yards. So, I mean, he's pushing the ball downfield when they're actually asking him to play quarterback. So that's a good sign. All in all, well, I don't know, Matty, do you guys have any other observations about Geno's performance? I mean, accurate, decisive, by and large, good in the pocket.
Yeah. A lot of people have asked about, why the offense stalled. We will cover that as a topic as well. But in terms of like Geno's role in that, I agree with you, Griff. I don't really think he could have done much better. There was like 2 throws where I felt he kind of he was not as decisive as he had been in the first half. That being said, like one of them, it was like a 3rd and 16 where the deep comeback to Fant, he could have thrown sooner. He kind of hesitated throwing it, I think. But then the timing's a bit off because it's a deeper drop, a deeper concept than it ordinarily would have been because they were running it to the sticks. It was open, and if he'd sort of trusted his first thought there, then it would have been completed. but because he didn't and he just waited on it, the corner was able to come and play it to the far. It was a field throw, so to the wide side of the field, and he got the pass breakup. But really, that is like kind of nitpicky. And then the second one is a bit earlier on. He had like a double post concept, or like two in breaking routes, and like the deeper in breaking route was kind of getting open. Do you know the play I'm talking about there? Where
he throws it into the dirt in front of Lockett.
Yeah. So, but it's like the quick game wide cross concept, and yeah.
So that ball was tipped though, but I thought that ball was tipped. But he had Goodwin. He saw the look, and Goodwin. I don't know how open Goodwin was. He wasn't exactly screaming out of his break on the in break on the dig, and that was when I tweeted. I was like, "Well, yeah, Geno progressed to that." And as Maddie's drawing this up, Geno progressed to that. And I would have loved to have seen him throw it, but I don't know if that was as throwable a look as you'd hope, because it's to the quarter side of the formation. The corner is squeezing it okay, like just isolated to the one-on-one look with the corner. It's targetable, not necessarily like wide ass open, but then you also have the quarter safety who can nail down, and it's to the field. I feel like the throw would have been safe, but it would have required a really good throw, though. That's where I wonder, like, man, if they had a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. in there, Geno probably throws that without hesitation. I mean, that assumes that Odell is still who he was with the Rams after his injury. But that's just me, fantasizing at that point. But yeah, but I like that it was in his process to progress to it, even if he didn't like the look. Maddie,
look at this production value, by the way. Like, hats off to us. We're doing a great job here.
Yeah,
that is
such a show right now.
The quick game. It is a show. It's the Seattle Overload show, and this is kind of the concept. But unfortunately, I'll work it out next time where I don't actually stand in front of half the drawing and I sort of adjust my mic properly. But that, I think that's pretty good. But the thing is, like, Griff, with that concept, like, he still worked his way to the backside, right? So, like, and he still, he turned down the dig, which was kind of, the corner was in a good undercut position. It was a bit riskier. Like you said, the quarter's safety up there, he was close to kind of jumping on it, right?
Right.
And then he just works to the backside, Lockett's open, and it's just a shame. I mean, you can criticize him for missing it. He should have hit that, but that's the one miss he had.
And then again, that ball was tipped when he threw it to Lockett.
Yeah.
So which, you can still put on the quarterback, I guess. You got to get it over the line of scrimmage. Yeah. So, but he had some absolute clutch plays. There are scenarios where the offense, Waldron, is just like, we need a bucket. And right now that means Geno just isolating Tyler. He's clearly his go-to receiver at the moment, at least for this game. And it's letting Tyler just win on the outside with either a comeback or like an out route from a reduced split. And he trusts that Lockett's going to get open, and he throws it, even like starts the throwing motion before Lockett actually cuts. And they worked that. Then also he had the 1 3rd and 10 completion to DK Metcalf, got rid of the ball before DK, was not even like stopping his feet yet. Just perfect timing. He put it inside and high where only DK could get it, and tight window throw, 14 yards downfield, whatever it was, and it's just like, wow, that was awesome. And then of course it was fault, and so Geno was like dealing at that moment, at that point in time. And then of course the DK fumble on the swing pass following, which kind of ruined all their progress right there. Maddie, are you drawing that play up right now?
Yeah, I think that's it, but I'm in the way of it, so let me just back off.
There you go.
Like little throw into quarters where front side he actually had it wasn't into quarters actually. It was a cover 3 fire zone, wasn't it? But
it was.
It worked out pretty nice because he had like a dagger or like a Swiss or coin concept front side, right? Like I'll just
right.
draw that up.
And okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So then because he opens there, but then he comes off of it really quickly. And I remember thinking that I don't know if the max or normal split, meaning the distribution of the receivers formation, served them there, because it took so long for Lockett's in break to actually clear that, the middle hook defender, or like the hot to 3 defender, the linebacker is what I'm saying, because you want that route to break horizontally and get inside of that linebacker, and that there's no way that look was getting there. So he moves off of it and hits DK on the isolation, and again throws a great ball and everything. But yeah, beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, so to recap with that, and just an overall thing is the process that we saw, regardless of the results of the preseason, right, which is very much reliant on the other 10 guys on offense doing their jobs, right? Regardless of all that, the process was there, where we were in a situation where the process has continued into week 1 and it works. Like, okay, the positive first half, there were a few coverage busts from Denver, but a quarterback who's not executing the right process consistently, and it's not even the right process, it's an excellent process. Just to say it's right is sort of belittling and like underplaying how good Geno's been, right? Like,
yeah,
it's an excellent process. Like, and that process has continued, and he was able to take advantage of some of Denver's busts. They were also partly a result of scheme. So the overall scheme, Griffin, a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah. So Seattle's structure right now, this is so we were talking about this when we were talking about gun running, not gun running. They've transitioned away from what is the Russell Wilson offense, which was designed to fit his unique strengths, and now that they're essentially living in the kind of McVay world now. It's Waldron running his offense. That means that when they're an under center, now the under center behavior looks very similar, and that it's lots of outside zone and then play action, boots and stuff. But it's like when they go into shotgun, they have shaved out their gun runs. Like they had 10 pure shotgun, not pistol, and we'll get into pistol. They had 10 shotgun snaps that were not pistol. It was just pure shotgun, like running back to the side of to the quarterback. They had 10 shotgun snaps and 10 called dropbacks on a single gun run. So what that means is you can now spend less total. Well, actually, before we get to what that means with what you do with those excess snaps that you're no longer running with, the statement there is that your dropback game is self-balancing. You don't need gun runs anymore and you don't need gun play action anymore, because your dropback game is imposing enough constraints on the defense in enough areas to where you are stretching them in all directions, which is thus balanced. So the passing game is self-balancing in shotgun right now, because that's Geno can work the progression. He'll do what the play call asks of him. That allows the play calls then to sequence things. Then it becomes like a greater than the sum of your parts equation. Geno executes and the scheme benefits Geno, and then Geno benefits the scheme, etc. Then you can actually game plan. You can, the play caller knows what his quarterback is going to do, more or less. So what that means is, so now that you are shaving your gun runs out of your gun sample, what are you doing with those snaps? You then get the benefit of pouring them into under center. That then means more under center snaps, ultimately means more under center play action snaps per total snap. So the frequency of under center play action increases by virtue of being able to spend more time in under center. And of course, under center play action is kind of a premium in the league right now. Like any play caller worth their salt can take any schmuck quarterback and get production there. Like look at Mitch Trubisky. Sorry, that's a mean way to speak of Mitch Trubisky. But we're
catching strays.
Now the thing is, the better the quarterback is, the even better the results are going to be. Now, what's interesting about this game, though, is that they actually didn't take those snaps and spend more time in under center. They spent like 15 snaps in under center, 10 snaps in shotgun. What they did was they took those snaps and put them into pistol. But when they were in pistol, They did a variety of things at pistol, and we'll talk about why. But they ran some of their pure under center concepts in pistol. So like one single back pistol, the like 12 personnel, the wide zone running, the outside zone running, and then the play action concepts off of it. But then they also did a little bit of like RPOs to challenge the overhangs or the mic and stuff against too high structure. And I thought that was to kind of, because you wouldn't run like play action dig routes against, half quarter, or you can, but it's not ideal. You'd rather do that against cover 3. So like when we saw those now slants to Noah Fant and DK Metcalf when they're in pistol, that's them essentially replacing what would have been like drift strike, or what Shanahan calls drift, what McVay and Waldron calls strike. So you're kind of, instead of challenging those linebackers at the second window, because you can get that quarter safeties nailing down, or the curl defender on the other side of the cover 2 side can stay high on that route and leverage it. If you're running kind of essentially pairing a now slant with a pistol RPO, or maybe one of them wasn't a true RPO, it might have been like a pre-snap thing, not like a post-snap read. You're still being able to get that kind of similar-ish production out of the same like wide zone principles, wide zone action principles. One of them was off of like GT counter, I think. So I'm talking a little bit out of my ass here. But I think that was why they elected to go into pistol, because they weren't getting a team that was going to play single high. But then beyond that, when they went the full house pistol, like 21 personnel, like even, or 12 personnel, but you got Disley in the backfield along with Noah Fant, that serves a couple of different purposes. One, it gives you variety. So like you can do, if you have an advantageous front look, you can run. Well, did they run triple option on that one?
So when they went full house, it was awesome because you actually had the triple option threat, and it was unfortunate because Denver didn't necessarily respect the pitch. They had their backside 4-eye. He kind of like cheated the play. He backdoored it really well, but like removed the what do you call it? The take read from Smith, but that's something that I'm sure we'll see Kenneth Walker and Penny up in there.
Yeah.
And the run diversity, Griff, which you're big on and is necessary, right? You can't just be a wide zone team. Like teams will figure you out. And the way that the kind of fronts and coverages and all that stuff, the defenses they run to stop wide zone, you got to have a counter punch, literally in like guard tackle counter, or in this case when they were in it, like guard tackle wrap, right? Where that was big. I'll just draw up the full house thing. But on that point as well, Griff, Denver's defensive line was really, really good. Like DJ Jones especially kind of cheats the math for them, or maths as I'd say.
He's a great player. Jerry Mott was good. So then the other side, the other aspect of this full house thing is when you are playing a quarters team and you're a safety and your number 2 is now in the backfield, meaning your number 2 receiver, like the perimeter receiver number 1, then the slot is your number 2, then the next slot, if it was trips, would be your number 3. But if your number 2 receiver is in the backfield, that influences the safety distribution and alignment. And even though like regular quarters and outside release on the outside still gets you one-on-one, when you shrink those safeties splits, you're getting even more of a one-on-one look on the outside. So when they went full house, they hit DK on the kind of that hinge route, and then on another one they looked for him deep down the sideline. So I think this pistol formation is one to kind of try to catch them in an under center defense, because if you put out enough like under center behavior when you're in pistol and you get an under center defense, then that means their pass rush can't tee off as well, because you're in a bare front. Your second edge is dropping into coverage. It's 300 pounders rushing you in an edge instead of 300 pounders and 250 guys. That means you can catch them in a bad look to try to get deep outside. And that was, I think, the other objective of this. So pistol is like bridging, and again, this might have been game plan, but it's bridging under center and it's bridging gun drop back. And then also it gives you different permutations to take advantage, like you were saying, of fronts that aren't equipped to defend multiple gaps changing. And so essentially it's the 2022 version of the McVay offense regaining lost balance that it doesn't have, because
I have a sorry.
Go ahead.
I agree with that. And like the McVay, what does the McVay offense do to get 7-man pass protection? They come out in empty and then they chip protect. Like they come out like this, 2 wing backs, and then they chip pass pro on the ends, and so they can run the kind of drop back games you're talking about, Griff.
Yeah.
But with empty, with 7-man protection. This pistol formation early in the game, they came out in chip pass pro.
Yeah.
And it is the same effect, but kind of Geno-ified, right?
Yeah.
Like they're able to get chip pass pro from this. This is like what I do in NCAA 14, because you're putting everyone, you get an under center defense, and you're getting everyone in the box. And heck, it's not a 1-on-1 because there's this crazy safety. But like you said, his 2, which is this guy or this guy, is in the backfield. So you are accessing a 1-on-1, and that hinge route that Geno threw early in the game,
which someone has
was on the right
for what that is.
But like the quarter safety tried to drive on it, but it's so far out that Geno had the arm strength, even far hash.
Yeah.
He was able to throw it anyway, so it's very impressive.
Yeah. So the overarching theme here is essentially goes back to balance. So like the McVay offense pure form is you live in under center and you live in shotgun. Shotgun is like 90% pass rate on early down. And then under center, that allows you to spend an exorbitant amount of time in under center, where your pass rate is like within the realm of what is normal for the league, like anywhere between 32 and 40%, which is where McVay lives. That's where most of the majority of the league lives. It's where Carroll lives, like, or the Seahawks live, when they're in under center, the pass rate in there. But so that means when you're in gun, teams know you are passing the ball, and then they still were efficient in spite of that. But it's defenses are trying to box you in and trying to figure you out and isolate what you do and when. Pistol kind of regains back some of the tendency, like obfuscation, like the defense can't put a finger on you anymore. And then it's regaining lost balance that you don't have when you're in gun. So, and Pete talks about balance. And I think what balance means to him is just being able to impose multiple constraints on the defense. It's not literally a numbers game. He no longer needs the run game to do that in shotgun. That's why they're not running in shotgun. I think whoever's idea in-house of really embracing pistol is a way to kind of get under center stuff, get shotgun stuff, be versatile in the run game. Whenever you want, you can hit a fade even if it's there. Not that they did in this game, but that's the objective. So, and they're able to do all this, maybe meet Pete's desires and still have a 60% pass rate overall. And they're not losing anything. They're not losing any of the benefits of the run game, because tendency can't be nailed down. Now we'll have to see how this, evolves over time and how things are game planned. But it's very interesting. You could say, kind of McVay tree,
well,
evolution.
Griff as well. I have to at this point shout out a fellow Brit, Ollie Connolly. Like in the preseason, he was writing about how pistols, what the McVay tree is going for, and how it's for what the similar reasons to what you've just outlined. So that is like the new wave. And I like this as well. Like talking of like tendency breaking, coming out in the pistol look with the trips kind of presentation, and they picked up a first down in 3rd and short to Penny down on the sideline, where they have all these guys in a condensed split in the trips. They then pre-snap motion from the pistol into like 4-strong gun, and 4-strong gun was a big part of this game as well. And then they throw it to Penny in the flat, classic pick concept. But if you come out in 4-strong, they think, hey, pick, it's short yardage. But coming out in the pistol to hide the tendency and then doing it, so it works for hiding tendencies of gun as well as the under center stuff. So
one more thing on exactly what you're saying. They showed pistol, and they're getting a like quote unquote under center defense, right? then they shift even to gun, and then they run gun drop back, and now you have a softer pass rush. And yeah, so
awesome.
Anyway.
So real quick, why did the offense stall?
They had one concept. Well, there was, when they were backed up in the end zone in the third quarter, they had the stick concept. It would have been a far out throw, and it would have been like Disley would have had to have caught it.
That was the one play I felt Geno should have done better.
Yeah. And it would have been, we're talking like a 4-yard gain, I think, here. But that still would have been better because he can operate really well on 2nd and 6, obviously, right? Like, I don't know why he didn't take that one. Maybe he thought the corner, who was a cover 3 corner, I think
it was cover 4 to that side.
Okay. I thought, okay, all right. But so one-on-one technique, he thought, even though like they're not playing palms, right? He might think he might just fall off because it's the distance of it, far hash, right? And then I can't remember exactly what happened after. There was that rollout where it was to Eskridge, and Eskridge didn't run a good route, but I didn't like that play call. It's like, give Geno a drop back concept. Really, I thought the offense was best when they were running pure deep drop or 5-step drop concepts, like actual quarterback play. And so and his numbers were like really good this week. I think he was like 4th in EPA, total EPA on pure dropbacks as well. Isolating that, looking at the numbers. So yeah, I think they just kind of stalled. It was just the sacks, the fumble from DK. I mean, they were probably rolling in that drive. Yeah, I don't know. Maddie, what are your thoughts there?
Well, that's just the stick concept drawn up. And I think what happened was he opens to this side of the field, and he's looking for DK, and they cover it quite well. He had a zone indicator out here because he had a running back out wide. The tight end was actually Disley in the slot. I've drawn that wrong. This should be the receiver. And the thing is, he should throw both of them. Like, the stick is there and the linebacker's there. That it's the one play I thought, hang on here, what's going on here? Has he got too conservative? But then the next play, he throws a really tight ball to Metcalf versus off-man coverage. Metcalf didn't expect the ball out the break. He threw it so soon, and they got defensive pass interference. So the play didn't actually end up being the reason for the stalling. I think the stalling happened because the run game, they had similar struggles where it was like up and down. I forget who it is, but the way their 4 eyes play on the backside of wide zone is the classic, really annoying thing of they're playing on the inside of the tackle. The tackle's trying to wash him down, so it's really nice. And then suddenly they're able to like win leverage and jump outside. And so the running back's gone to stick his foot in the ground. He's cutting all the way back against the grain. And then the 4 eyes just pop back outside into that C gap. And so the running back's like, crap, I've got to hit this up the B gap now, and then it just runs out of spacing options. Yeah. They don't get the full on wash effect. So that, like, Denver's D line was damn good. Like I said that they struggled last year. I think they did. That's a fact. But this time around, they were really good.
Yeah. So and their under center behavior, like legit under center, not pistol. They started off the game, I think, with like 4 or 5 straight under center runs when they were in under center. And they ended up running like 4 or 5 straight play action concepts, I think, later on. So they ended up they had 15 under center snaps and 7 passes to 8 runs. So that's a 46% pass rate, which is huge. But that's also what they were in the Wilson games last year, up until before like week 14 when Penny really popped off. They're like, okay, we actually are better off running the ball, winning under center now. But so like that's where most of the runs are going to come in, is under center, and they're still passing a lot in that set. Now most of it was like movement. It wasn't a lot of pocket play action, but I think that's where they wanted the pistol for. The pocket play action concepts, that's what they wanted. I think they wanted pistol for that. But yeah,
that's just that point. I've drawn it up far too small. That was silly, but that's the point I was illustrating about running backs carrying wide zone. And the Lucas penalty, which was ticky-tacky, but it was probably the right call. He did hold him for just a bit too long. They actually got it hitting where the running back cuts back because they've got a nice wash up front. He cuts back. The 4-eye, who's been inside and is like the tackle's about to wash him, then just manages to get his ass outside, and it prevents the play. So that's unfortunate. Right. But overall, I don't think we should be concerned about the offense. I think it's kind of like a perfect storm. I don't think it's like a carryover of last year, even though it felt like it was less of, the smaller amount of plays.
Yeah.
So
the issues seem like so like small and isolated, right? That you can live with it. It's just mostly like I just wish they ran the ball more at the end of the or towards the end of the second half. That last rail drive that they had. That's really it, though.
Yeah, there was a time where they had that holding penalty killed that drive, and then DK's fumble killed a drive. Like, and Geno can overcome some negative plays. Like, I'm not saying he can't. It's not like a Geno thing. That was the big thing for me. It wasn't a Geno being bad or like worsening thing. Like, he still was playing well. He was still reading stuff out. Their concepts are still getting open. There was like a play where they did sprint out to hit like a speed out to
was that the Eskridge one?
Away from 4 strong. Yeah, and they did it to Eskridge, and I'm like, it's a nice play, but not to Eskridge. And Lucas there allowed some inside penetration, but like Eskridge should have worked back. He could have caught Lockett catches that, in my opinion. Anyway, defense, because we've been going half an hour. Defense. How good was the defense, Griff? Are you actually better question? Are you concerned about how many yards they gave up, or
it was definitely like, okay, they only gave up 16 points. It was definitely a mixed game in terms of how the defense actually played. And it should be said though, like, oh, they had fumbles in the end zone, but then also like how they got into the red zone was you could play the if and but game both ways. So I feel like the points were actually a true reflection of how the defense played overall. But yeah, so they had some significant issues defending like the slide route and flat routes off of play action. And that was like either the edge force either overrunning, or it was, even if that guy was the flat defender, the edge guy, because remember when they were in bear, which they were, especially in the first quarter, it's one guy's dropping, one guy's rushing, but even still, they still have boot responsibilities. They were just overrunning it. And so they were getting a lot of free yardage down there. They did a fine job defending the second level at play action. So between the linebackers and the nailing down safeties, they were fine there. So it was like flat issues and then screens again, although they only gave up 5.8 yards per play against Denver's, I think, 5 screens. And only 3 of them were considered a success, where it generates positive EPA. Actually, I don't know if the screens are that much of an issue as they felt like on broadcast, because some of them happen on like 3rd and long where they would gladly invite a screen, right? Some of them, were definitely, they got them, and Russ executed them well. Like he was, getting the ball out like just inches over Cody Barton, or like just squeezing it, just inches around a lineman, right? So kind of squeaky stuff like that. But then beyond that, most of the yardage they gave up was like out of structure stuff, or like the Judy play against Kobe Bryant. I felt like they defended Seattle's structure. I felt like defended the Denver structure more often than not in the actual drop back game. They defended the fade ball really well, even if they got flagged for a penalty on that. It was just because it was only a penalty, because it was underthrown, in my opinion, on that one.
Yep.
But I think that they held to the principles they were trying to. They just need to seriously clean up their issues in the flat, and of course the run defense early on.
Yeah, the run defense early on, I attribute that to like rust and mainly just rust. Like they weren't crack replacing as quick as they could have done. They weren't setting the edge as well as they could. It was just like early stuff, and Denver didn't really change what they were doing. Seattle just played, like, executed better. The flat issue you're talking about was tricky because it's what we're talking about. Like their base call is tight will 6, right? So that is quarters. Oh, I've drawn it wrong. Hold on. It's literally as simple as this, though. So it's quarters to the strength, which is this tight end here, and then cover 2 away, so a deep half, right? And so what was happening is either the way they managed to wind it back into the flat, they were causing issues by like running guys off, and basically it comes down to them being sure of like whose job it was. But like what I found was the real issue was when they showed run away, right? So like everyone's blocking this way, like a run weak thing, and then the fullback winds back. Because then it's a case of the corner's been run off. And then who has this flat route? Well, it should be this defensive end, but Darrell Taylor didn't do that at the start. He was going straight for Russell on the boot. And they kind of cleaned it up a bit more. So that it's just a thing of cleaning up. Like I don't think it's but it is also like Denver was intelligent. The other thing I'd say is they were very simple in their calls. I'd say they had about 10 calls on the day.
Yeah.
They had tight will 6. They had tight saw. So this is tight will 6. So quarters to the strength, half away. Then saw is the same front, but it's fire zone. So 5 guys going at the line of scrimmage. Then they play 3 deep, 3 under underneath it. So cover 3. So.
And I think, not to cut you off, I think part of the reason why they were so simple is because they culled like a large part of their coverage menu, their call menu, because they didn't want to give a lot of single high looks to Russ. So that just meant they had to live more in their 2 high looks. So beyond that, there wasn't a lot of reason to.
Well, yeah, I agree.
Like Denver was simple too, so they were in essence matching.
Yeah, Seattle basically had like a fire zone, a middle field open for base, and then a fire zone, 2 fire zones for like passing downs, and then like 3 middle field opens.
And
like,
so
and 1 middle field closed. Like very, very simple. But it worked. Like and the encouraging thing is the half quarter stuff and the quarter half stuff. Like we knew Russ wasn't good against that, but he wasn't good against that. Like he struggled with that.
Yeah, I mean, he only got production against it again with what we said. It was like under center play action stuff in the flat, which the reason why they were, I think, spending so much time in under center was because like they weren't trying to challenge anything over the middle of the field with it. So they were trying to force base personnel to isolate quarter flat defenders. They're just essentially playing cheese ball, small ball stuff in the flat. And then when it was time to go drop back, when they were in gun, like they got very little in structure. It was all screens and scramble drill. And Russ did get some product. I mean, he did produce in that area, which is it's like very. It's very Russ, right? Now one of the themes here was, so someone asks what's with the 4-man fronts. So that's the whole part of them trying to stay balanced, right? So, or not balanced, trying to stay aggressive. If you want to live in a 2-high world, you're taking a guy out of the box. So you are trying to counteract that by playing bear to help defend the run. But then that hurts your pass rush, which if the pass rush is so bad when in bear, then that hurts your coverage. And it's like, well, what's the point here? So then you try, all right, 4-man front paired with 2 high so that we can have pass rush, but then can we defend the run well enough in it? So that will be the test moving forward if they can continue to do that. I think that did benefit them because while the pass rush was not great or even say good, it still impacted, especially in the toward the end of the game. I thought Taylor and Mosu was pretty steady throughout. But I thought Taylor really started to heat up. He was getting held a lot. But it's to give the edge rushers angles so that they can stay sound. Yeah, and we'll have to see how they do defending the run in that as they go forward. But a lot of their main issues defending the run came, ironically, when they were in Bears, just those outside runs and the kind of losing, edge force and stuff, and getting poor angles.
Yeah. So just real quick, that's their cover like 8, what they call. So halves to the strength. There's 3 guys here. So it's cover 2 to the strength with this nickel vertical match like they did last year. So he matches this 2 receiver high and inside, basically stopping him from getting to this open middle of the field. Then we've got quarters on the backside. So we've got this guy and this guy. And why it works against Russ is Russ ain't going to throw the honey hole shot that often, especially against this kind of look. He was looking a lot of the time at the backside cover 4 stuff, and he experienced similar difficulties to what he has done against the Rams, because obviously they've run this as well.
So this has to be talked about, like you just said. He got a couple of those looks, whether it was against the fire zone or the quarter side, right? When they spun to a fire zone.
Yeah.
And Sutton couldn't get anything down the sideline. And that was because of Tariq Woolen. Like Woolen locked him up on the fade ball and the go ball. So that's huge. I mean, that's like, because what did we talk about in the preview episode? We were like, that feels like it'll be the main principle. Now, they only scored the Denver Broncos, the Russell Wilson-led Denver Broncos, only scored 16 points.
And Griff, Mike Jackson as well, albeit from off coverage, not press, but Mike Jackson was over the top of Cortland Sutton when he got tested in the quarter. Like when Mike Jackson, he stays high and inside. Russ looks at it and he's like, "Nah, I'm not throwing that because that's really good coverage." And Woolen, oh my word, like watching the tape back, you realize how often he was actually just pressed up on guys and how often he was on an island. Well, figuratively, not figuratively, kind of, because it is still, you still do have your quarters help here. But even when it's trips like this, a lot of the times they'll actually poach this guy here, free this linebacker just to play up in here, and then this is a pure one-on-one up here. Oh, no, not with him, right? That's a pure one-on-one. And Woolen was in those situations and was fine. Like, he had the 2 defensive pass interference penalties. The first one's really ticky-tacky. But other than that, whoa, he was good. And just the athletic ceiling, like, he's undercutting dig routes from press quarters, like, easily. Like, the athletic ceiling is nuts, and the technique is there, and he didn't get upset like early. I'd have got upset if I give up 2 defensive pass interference penalties, but he just resets, comes out there, balls out.
There's another one where they're running a comeback on him, and he's a little high on it, and they get underneath him, and he baseball turns and spins back to it and doesn't lose a yard of separation. And just soaks, just magnetizes right back to the receiver. And I'm just like, wow, that's crazy movement skills. Because he didn't have a Jalen Ramsey 3-cone, but he had a good 3-cone for his height, weight, speed, and length. It's just insanity. Now, the one thing I think that as encouraging as Tariq was and Mike Jackson was, and I even thought Coleman actually played a pretty good game playing his roles in his new rule and playing his rules in his new role.
You got it.
Oh, there we go. I did it. We saw some of the learning curve that's going to have to undergo that can only happen with experience with the cloud corner and the vertical hook exchanging inbreakers and outbreakers with one another. That's something, well, I didn't take it for granted. I yelled it from the rooftops, but that was just something that I think is easy to take for granted. Because Ugo Amadi and whoever the corners were last year, well, DJ Reed and then Trey Brown and then Sidney Jones, when he was healthy, they had such great chemistry, and they were just not giving offenses anything with combination patterns to the cover 2 side. And Russ, on one of them, it was a scramble, but it was still staying, he was still reading out the play on the scramble. It wasn't from the pocket. And then so Tariq squeezes the inbreaker as a cloud, and then sure enough, the outbreaker goes over top of him, and then the scramble drill pulls him even further out, and then they get the free gainer out to the edge of the sideline. But I could just think, well, if that was DJ Reed and Ugo doesn't overrun number 2, He passes it off and then calmly falls off to the number 1, and then DJ Reed easily falls off number 1, and then kind of sails underneath that number 2, and there's nothing there. So as talented as Tariq is, that's just like something they're going to have to build up, right? Like that's kind of what they signed themselves up for when they let Ugo go and they let DJ Reed go, right?
Yeah, I actually do think as well, like in terms of just the nickel conversation, like Coleman looked like very much on the athletic edge. Like I think Bryant had a tough rep where he's one-on-one. They clever in that they target it away from where Seattle was rotating high. So like the middle field safety is not really going to be able to help on how quick the ball came out. But like I think Bryant's athletic upside and like just being, fresher, I think he'll get an opportunity to come back in and compete with Coleman, because Coleman looked like there's a few times where I'm like, oh, he's like, his first game of the season, he's like struggling to stay in step for step with this guy, and he's a nickel, right? So,
yeah.
But in a lot of this stuff, it's all about like mixing up the calls enough.
Yeah. There was one where he played like a weird technique. I think he thought they were he looked like he was buzzing, but they were too high. Maybe he thought the call was a fire zone and he was supposed to get underneath a comeback. Granted, you are playing against Russell Wilson, so a lot of perimeter throws, right?
Yeah.
So that made sense, but then that was the one where Judy just like, okay, I'll just run inward, and it's turned into like a diamond slant kind of looking thing, even though it wasn't a slant. And then Judy's screaming across the field on one of those plays in the fourth quarter. Do you remember that one? Where just Coleman, like even on the broadcast, it looked like a really weird drop.
The Judy play, yeah, because it's a fire zone, so he's the seam curl flat player. Yeah, he's holding off the seam curl flat, but like he's so slow getting like, and they are trying to hold it off for a bit of disguise purposes. But then also he's like he then like second guesses it into like Judy breaking it outside. Like that's what I mean by being on the athletic edge, because then he gets beat like way into the low hole where there's no one, because I think they had to push to the other side with a fast 3.
Yeah.
So
honestly, I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, just definitely a bit open still. Even if Kobe only played one other snap, then the play got beat on. I feel like they'll just settle him down and go again.
I wish it was the reverse. I wish it was Coleman and man, just to see because I feel like that's just what he's more comfortable with. And Kobe seemed more promising as a nickel for zone purposes. I know, like, this is the whole, topic of discussion with Ugo, was that when he's out there, you're calling zone, right? So you don't want to become predictable. But I hope that because this was a game where they didn't really have a cover 1 package that they were going to dip into, next week, if they do that, I hope we see Coleman more man situations and they give Kobe more of the zone situations.
So
because, again, like they did very little cover 1 this game. And when they did, they got,
they played cover 1 robber once, and I think they got away with it. But yeah, there's only so much. I think with any of the corners, I think there's only so much they can play, really. Although Woolen's probably the most viable one-on-one dude right now.
It'll be interesting once Artie is full go and Sydney is full go. What they finally mix and match guys.
I don't actually think. I think both Woolen and Jackson have earned the right to start again. But you're right, yeah. So this is cover 6, so it's literally like cover 8, but the opposite. So quarters to the strength, then cover 2 on the backside. Here you can see. So there you go. Griffin, how before we preview the 49ers game, just real quick, how good was the pass rush? Watching back, I felt Nwosu was way better than I thought on the broadcast. Maybe that's confirmation bias after he won NFC Defensive Player of the Week, but he was so good against the run and the pass. Had a better game than Taylor. Good in coverage as well. Really just a very exciting first showing for him. He was helped also that he was playing on the right, which helps because they weren't afraid to let the right defensive ends take an inside move because they kind of wanted to flush Wilson to the left. Now, I don't actually think a lot was made about Pete Carroll saying we don't mind him moving to the left. I don't think I saw as much of like flushing him to the left as I expected. More just they'd rush off Wilson's right, the defensive left, more often and drop Nwosu and let Nwosu do inside moves, whereas Taylor didn't get to do inside moves. But there wasn't like real design to do that. But anyway, yeah, Nwosu, really impressive.
He was, I mean, he definitely outplayed Taylor. He was just good all around player. And then Taylor started to come alive a little bit toward the final stretch, but he wasn't able to impact the play because, well, he did impact the play, like he flushed the quarterback out. But then he was getting held, but like getting held is a good thing. It means you're impacting the game if you get called for it. But so like, but he didn't get called for it. And a couple of them were egregious. My only thing with the holding is like, I think I counted 4 or 5 where it was callable. You don't have to call them all, like let them play, but call one of them just so that the tackle cools their jets a little bit.
Yeah, you have to establish the precedent. Otherwise, as a player, you just do what you can get away with.
You just keep doing it, which, compete. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
But yeah, just call one of them. So that, because I mean, one of them was insane, like absurd, like Fleming tackled him. And then Bulls had some really obvious one where he hooked him on the inside move, and it's like, that's not blocking.
That was awful.
But Taylor was inches away of like, he had a couple of splash plays where everyone goes, oh, Taylor had a great game if he comes down with those 2
and
sacks.
He had some nice rushes around the arc, which like forced Wilson up. Like he was doing a good job on the left. It's just rushing from the left. They really wanted that guy to be the like pocket depth setter,
Yeah, that's the other thing we have to remember is like they're rushing Russell Wilson, so it's not a normal rush plan, right? They're not rushing a guy who they know is going to stay in the pocket and try to continue to read things out like most would, and then they can, rush their angles accordingly, right? So like Clint Hurtt said, like, we have to contain him a little bit. We want to flush him, then we also want to contain him, like not give certain rush lanes. I thought the interior group, they were sneaky, like impactful, like showing up. Like Quentin Jefferson had like 3 like side swipe into swim moves, like just kind of he showed at his best. Shelby Harris had some really good bull rushes. He affected Russ on one of his deep throws. I think he even affected him on a couple of them actually. But then one of the 2 that I'm thinking of was the one where Diggs dropped the interception. I think that Russ couldn't get his whole body into it the way he wanted to because his platform is being rushed into by Shelby. So Shelby was an impact player. I mean, he's giving them what they need, I think.
Yeah.
Big time guy.
The defensive line as well, there was definitely a thing of staying central, like trying to be, Clint Hurtt called it the forest through the trees, like seeing that for Russ. Like they were trying to clog that middle up, like the passing lanes, because obviously Russ can't see over them. That I think I saw that really going on. And yeah, obviously Shelby Harris was on the injury reports there of a back thing, and the play he got hurt on was the goal line stop. We haven't even talked about the goal line stops, but that was just impressive football from people. But Ty, have we done a bad job of explaining anything? Is there anything you want to know from the film?
No, I'm following along. I was. Oh, we need to talk about Tariq Woolen.
Oh no, we did. No, we talked. We didn't. Well, we didn't talk about linebackers.
Right. Cody Barton. We had a question about Cody Barton. People wanted to know about Cody Barton.
Cody was fine. So he wasn't actually challenged a lot. Like he kind of did his job, but then he made those impact plays, on the screen, right, where he recognized it. And
made his tackles. Didn't miss a tackle.
He didn't get lost. He was doing things right. So like this, the type of things where given enough chances, his process from the Lions game and the Cardinals game last year, he was really good, is going to continue to project forward. Jordan Brooks was a monster. I mean, in coverage, he was doing absurd things. He was covering a stick nod, didn't fall for it, was able to stay in the hip pocket of the tight end, and then Russ scrambled, so he has to cover him even longer. He's covering him like 30 yards downfield. They needed another one, an absurd play on Judy. That was the one where Russ scrambles. Cody Barton is a zone dropper, so he's not man turning he's a curl. I don't think he's playing a vertical hook, just a straight curl in cover 2. And that's the one where the receiver just like runs like a semicircle, like a half circle, and just turns around, and Russ like spins in the pocket and hits him. So like that was pure scramble drill. But on that play, it's 3-by-1. And if you know, and that's an important note because it's 3-by-1 and they're giving Jordan Brooks all of number 3, meaning you are closing off the middle of the field and we're in cover 6, I think, right? And it was cover 2 it was cover 2 to the weak side. So they're saying, right, cover 6, right? We're going to double the weak side corner, or the weak side receiver, because we don't want to give Russ a one-on-one look on the outside if it's a vertical. That means if we want to remain in too high, you have to have someone closing off the middle of the field. That means we're asking our 245-pound linebacker to do it. And they're willing to do that when there's speed at 3, not even a tight end, when there's Jerry Jeudy in there. He presses vertical, runs as fast as he can upfield. Jordan stays on top of him, but doesn't panic and overrun it because of potential in-break. Sure enough, Jeudy drops his hips, Jordan drops his, and then is able to collision with him a little bit and then stay on him and be able to undercut a potential dig route, and then continues to cover him all the way until he gets to that same weak side safety when they get into the scramble drill. So he stayed on Jerry Jeudy for 4.5 seconds. I timed it. Just an absurd play. And that's not just, even though they gave up a completion outside of that, that means that gives them so much more flexibility in the too high world. You can, when you have a mic that can cover, you can double who you want. You can distribute resources how you want. You're not just locked into having to have that weak safety poach front side. So it just gives you more options. And it's because Brooks is, for my money, elite.
Well, and it's about eliminating explosive plays, right? Like you're not going to give up a big play if that guy can do that job, because that's the hardest role in the defense, which generally the hardest role in the defense is the one which will lead to explosives. Okay, 49ers. Ty.
Yes. So,
are there any good?
A couple things that we need to talk about. Yeah, well, a couple things that we need to talk about before we get into the 49ers themselves. 90% chance of rain on Sunday. George Kittle looks like he's not going to play. Daniel Brunskill, one of their starting offensive linemen, also looks like he's not going to play. He didn't play last week as well, just like Kittle. And then, of course, Elijah Mitchell is also out for the 49ers. So, favorable injury news for the Seahawks on that front. Obviously, though, Shelby Harris didn't practice today, so that's bad. That's frowny face. 49ers, are they good? Kind of remains to be seen, because they played in a monsoon last week and it didn't go particularly well for them, and people are already calling for Trey Lance's job. So it's kind of like we still need to see it, because those are such unique conditions for them to play in last week. I mean, the fourth quarter especially, like, it was just pouring down rain. There was literally nothing they could do. Like, Trey Lance can't throw, like, no one can throw a football on that. So still kind of a wait and see thing. I don't know. Have you guys watched any 49ers, like any of their game from against the Bears this week?
Yeah, I did watch a little bit. I mean, it's so hard because the conditions were it was like pig slop out there. It was really bad. They run a lot. They have the option game or the read game, and that makes you, I feel like they're gonna force base personnel. It's gonna be similar principle in that they're just going to try to, I mean, Seattle's gonna match this. Now, I don't think with a lot of cover one. They'll probably fire zone a lot more. And I meant one high. They'll probably fire zone more so to stay gapped out for run purposes. But they're going to play, I think, maybe like max fit quarters and stuff. But then I worry about
noticed
play action shot.
I noticed against the Broncos. Well, one, I don't think they expected the Broncos to play as much heavy, like 21 personnel I form as they did. I think they'd have had like one or two more calls for that, given what actually happened, and also given their struggles against that sort of stuff. And so against the Broncos, what I noticed was when Y was off the line of scrimmage, they played like max fit quarters for that. And I think like to get with all the like the read option stuff and it wasn't max fit quarters, but they played quarters. But like with all the potential of Lance as a runner, and also the way that the 49ers move bodies around like post snap during the play across the formation, I do think, Griff, I agree, like max fit quarters would be the approach rather than picking a side where you have cover 2 where suddenly if you've got the wrong side, things get a bit difficult, as the Broncos even showed. So the threat of Lance's run is obviously scary. If Kittle's actually out, that is massive because like he enables them to do so much more in the run game. It's not just about him as a passing threat. Like his ability as a run blocker and ability to be mobile and get out in space quickly, get up to second level linebackers is big. The one problem against Denver schematically was other than like the sides and then the execution stuff was that issue we've spoke about a number of times of like the 5 technique, where not having a 5 technique means the backside linebacker gets climbed on against power. And so Denver had a few like glitzy power runs where
I thought there would be more considering what LaFleur does.
Yeah, so I think
I tweeted about that.
And there we go.
There's a reason for that.
So I think we see them probably, and Clint Hurt mentioned it as well. He was asked about it in his press conference. He mentioned playing with a big 5. I think they might have to do that for power, like, or do a movement into it or something, because you got to protect the backside linebacker. I'll just draw that up.
Or I mean, fire zone with that movement, right? We'll probably see some of that Palms fire zone too. Which was big for them last year. But I don't know what they're going to retain, what they don't retain. But we'll see what Maddie draws up here. This will be our last graphic of the evening, I believe.
And then I want us to get into some predictions as well before we hop off.
Predictions? I'll just do my
put our necks out on the line.
I'm gonna go. Right. I'm gonna go 27-20 Seahawks.
Okay. With it being like 90% chance of rain, I feel like this is gonna be another. Like it's not gonna be a monsoon like it was in Chicago, but I feel like it's probably gonna be a sloppy game. I'll go another sub 20-point game. Let's say 19-17 Seahawks.
All right. Yeah, 27 Maddie, might be fresh with the rain.
As you're drawing.
There we go. That's the C-gap issue. So because this 4-eye is here, he gets caught inside. He's like taking on this tackle. So this tight end has a clean release to come to the backside linebacker. And if they pull this guy round, they get more numbers than the defense has to this side, and so the run hits all the way up in this little alley. My prediction is that the Seahawks win. I think they run the heck out of the ball. I think they run it probably treble the amount of times they ran it. And I think the 49ers, again, they're like most of the league, they're still like a quarters coverage team. With like fire zone stuff to like when they feel run, but I don't think they're as good up front in a like run defense perspective than like what Seattle saw from the Broncos. And I don't believe they're like a tight front team, right? They're not running bare.
No, they do it with even, and they just bank on the length of their.
They're doing the width and then
pursuit.
Yeah.
Their second level is crazy pursuit between. Warner, their safety, I think, what's his name? Hafawanga. I might be misremembering
That's correct. He looked really good, by the way.
Yeah.
Talanoa Hafanga.
But like, we're talking like heavier personnel stuff than what the Bears did. I think we're talking more pistol, more 12, 13 personnel again.
So we might actually see some constraint runs on like second and short and stuff. They get some advantageous looks. So like when they're in gun, they're going to just straight up run like, long trap or whatever, GT counter or GT wrap, straight up, just because the look will be beneficial. And if you're doing that, it means you can gun protection.
Seattle's answer for that is nickel fire zone. So even front and then.
Oh,
wait, you're talking about the 49ers offense.
Oh, yeah. I was talking about the Seahawks offense.
Sorry, I'm lost.
But you're right though. Yeah. When they fire zone,
the 49ers will be more gun as well, I think, than perhaps we expect, and that's something which it'll be interesting to see Seattle's if they have another answer, because so far it's just been nickel, send the nickel, fire zone into like bear spacing.
Right.
Yeah. Also very interested to see how, with Mitchell out, how many more carries does Debo get in that offense?
How many can he get, right?
Near the goal line. Down near the goal line. Because like how much are they going to balance Jeff Wilson with Debo? Because I feel like Debo ends up being the primary guy.
They're going to kill Debo.
That's kind of
in the
they're basically going to
in the passing game. I think Shanahan's going to he's going to go for all the cheese ball stuff, combinations in the like go wheel, just see what they can, go wheel flat, stuff like that, just to see what they can get them to the outside zone defenders to bust, like the corners, like what we talked about with Woolen and Coleman, but like just see what they can get them to, like, like drift stocks, those sort of things, to see what kind of fades they can manufacture and stuff. Just see if they can get easy money, like shallow wheel, stuff like that. I feel like we're going to see a lot of that.
There we go.
All right.
Well, it'll be a fun game, and it's a bit earlier for me, only 9:05 p.m., 1:05 p.m. Pacific time. And it's crazy to me that the Seahawks are now 10-point underdogs. But
how does that happen after beating a team that they were 6.5?
It's crazy. It shows that Vegas thinks that they were only up for that. They got lucky, and they are only up for that Denver game because of like the Russ effects. But I mean,
this feels like as even again. I mean, even if you're low on the Seahawks, you should.
Well, I'm quite low on Trey Lance, really. I mean, that's famous last words.
To me, he's still just a total wild card. He could pop off at any moment or have a disaster game at any moment.
And I don't think either one of these teams is going to be able to create enough separation because of the weather, because it's just going to be kind of a sloppy fist fight. Like I just 10 points is insane. And like what have the 49ers shown that warrants that?
I mean,
like, it's just I don't know. Going off of like Monday.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
10 points is egregious.
Yeah. Well, we'll enjoy that. Until that point, if you're still in the stream, please leave a comment in the YouTube section, because that does help us. It really does. We appreciate you for tuning in. If you haven't already, please review us, 5-star reviews. Follow, subscribe to the podcast. Follow everyone on Twitter here. I hope the whiteboard worked. Please do leave feedback. Like if it was difficult, if I did a bad job, if you'd rather just be talky, then. But I feel it worked okay. We'll have a post-production meeting. But yeah. Thank you everyone. And
we were winging it a little bit, but we appreciate feedback.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
All right.
Thank you.